Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this afternoon as we are here today to discuss a very critical and important topic, student loans and the U.S. Department of Education. Why are these so important? For so many, the Department of Education is an impactful organization. The American dream is something that brings all together, no matter where you're from. The U.S. Department of Education assists in facilitating that dream becoming a reality. It assists by providing the funding for children or student loans for those that want to pursue higher education. The Trump administration's comments have caused a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty. And we're here today to provide guidance, to provide support, and to distinguish fact from fiction. Today, you'll be hearing from many subject experts who have worked directly on the matter, as well as those that are assisting the ones that have been impacted. And we are here together so that we can do this not alone, but besides one another. Today, we are joined by Carolina Rodriguez, the Director and Attorney for the Education Debt Consumer Assistance Program. We are also joined by Vivian Anguiano from the former Director of Education at the White House, as well as Christopher Berto, Vice President for Monroe College. We will also be joined by the Member of Congress, Adriano Espaillat. And to begin, we will proceed with Ms. Carolina Rodriguez. Carolina, if you may, please, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here on a Saturday. I think you're gonna hear from experts that have really insight into what is happening. I'm gonna start with the dense topic, which is student loans. And I think my fellow co-panelists are gonna cover other areas that, again, the recent news in terms of the Department of Education and its layoff, how that's going to impact on the K through 12 and then at the higher education system level. So we realize that there's a lot of anxiety, especially with individuals who have student loans. And so we want to tackle that first, and then again, we're going to dive deep into the other topics. Give me 1 second. I just want to confirm. If someone can confirm, you can see my PowerPoint. And this PowerPoint is not going to be too long. I'm going to try to speed through a lot of this information. So really quickly, who we are a program of the Community Service Society of New York, and we offer free and unbiased one-on-one counseling services to anyone who needs it. What exactly do? We can help you determine your best student loan repayment options, access student loan forgiveness, apply for consolidation, deferment, or forbearance, especially right now if you need it, get out of default. In other words, if you have any issue related to higher education debt, whether it's federal loans, private loans, or direct to school debt, we are a free resource, and we have 11 community-based organizations that, again, can help you regionally if needed. At the end of this presentation, you're going to have our contact information, and you'll be able to book your own online counseling session if needed. Here are the latest update. Obviously, a big topic of conversation today is the layoffs with the Department of Education. It has reduced its workforce by half. It laid off 1,300 employees in addition to another 600 that had already resigned or retired. So this is going to be a huge impact in terms of the student loan and financial aid impact. We can say that it really reduced the workforce within the federal student aid system, FSA. FSA has been responsible for overseeing student loan servicers and also providing the support borrowers have needed when things go wrong, right? When they have a complaint, it would be FSA and their unit that would help resolve those issues. And again, a lot of those staff have been let go, so we can expect weakening of some borrower protections, oversight, and less support for the one-on-one cases that is needed. When it comes to federal financial aid, in particular, the impact is going to be on FAFSA. If folks remember, a year ago, there was a new FAFSA. There were a lot of issues, and finally this year, the application has been working quite well for the most part. So now we are concerned that again, these layoffs are gonna delay individuals being able to get their financial aid, especially if they're facing technical issues, because they might not be able to get the help they need on time to resolve those issues. Now, moving right along, when it comes to federal student loans, we were already in limbo, and that's in part because there is this litigation known as SAVE. SAVE is a repayment plan that was issued under the Biden administration that offer people more affordable repayment plan, a more affordable repayment plan option that included many other benefits. Now, what has happened is that SAFE was caught up in litigation and it was halted. And the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals recently stayed the injunction, meaning the injunction remains in place. And that means that SAFE and all the other features cannot be implemented. This means that those borrowers, about 8 million who were enrolled in the Safe Repayment Plan, continue to remain in a zero interest bearing forbearance. In other words, their loans are not accumulating interest. However, and this is a big however, time in forbearance right now does not count towards forgiveness programs, primarily public service loan forgiveness and income-driven repayment forgiveness. Another unfortunate part about this litigation that really went beyond SAVE is that it also halted the processing of income-driven repayment plans. As a result, right now, if you wanted to enroll in an income-driven repayment plan, you cannot do that. If you wanted to switch, you cannot do that. This freeze is expected to be in place for 90 days all the way through May, although it could be shorter or it could be extended. We don't know right now what it's going to look like in terms of when IDR plans are going to be reopened. And then there is this other income-driven repayment forgiveness that has been on hold. This is forgiveness for people who have been in repayment for 20 to 25 years. They were supposed to get their loans forgiven, but again, this has been halted, and the outcome of forgiveness under income-driven repayment plans is subject to the outcome of the litigation or congressional action. Now, another thing that I should mention is that online consolidation. So if borrowers wanted to consolidate federal loans into one loan or two loans, depending on what type of loans they have, you cannot do that online. You could still submit a paper consolidation application. Again, this is only for people who want to consolidate, not for people who want to enroll in IDR plans. PSLF, the good news is that it remains in place and has, for the most part, not been impacted by the SAVE litigation. Now, speaking about PSLF, President Trump issued an executive order directing the education secretary to basically redefine what agencies qualify for public service loan forgiveness. And I'm going to talk more about PSLF shortly, but in general, this executive order is saying go figure out and reduce or change the definition of qualifying organizations, and they would be quote unquote targeting organizations that violate federal immigration laws, support terrorism, etc., etc. The bottom line and the takeaway for today is that the executive order does not eliminate PSLF by any means, and the program requirements as of today remain unchanged. You want to stay tuned, obviously, for any updates as the Secretary of Education tries to implement this executive order. Now, it is very important for people to step back a little bit and remember that the grace period known as the on-ramp for entering effectively repayment after COVID ended last year in September. So there's a lot of misinformation out there where borrowers think that they're just not going to pay their student loans because it has no consequences to them, or they haven't seen any consequence yet. And the reason may be that they haven't seen any of the adverse effects of not paying their student loans because there were a lot of safeguards during the Biden administration to prevent loans from going into delinquency, to prevent loans from being reported to credit agencies. But that ended. As a result, we are hearing now since February, people are seeing their credit score go down if they haven't entered into repayment. I want to caution borrowers that if you do not pay after 9 months of non-payment starting in October, your loans are going to be going into default. And at that point, the federal government does have the right to administratively garnish your wages intercept any tax refund, and offset Social Security and even disability benefits. So again, if you have not interactively repayment, you want to check your student aid record and your servicer account to make sure that you bring back your loans into good standing and avoid default because the consequences are real. Now, moving right along, what do you do right now in terms of understanding your repayment plan options? There are two broad categories. You still have options under the traditional repayment plans. The traditional repayment plans determine your payment based on the total loan balance, the interest rate, and a predetermined payback period that can range from 10 years up to 25, 30 years. To get 30 years, you would need to have consolidated federal student loans. The only drawback there's a couple of drawbacks about traditional plans is that one, the payment may be unaffordable if you have a high loan balance. And two, any payments made under a traditional repayment plan does not get you credit towards public service loan forgiveness or income-driven repayment forgiveness. So again, traditional plans are still an option. To enroll in a traditional plan. You would just need to call your student loan servicer. Income-driven repayment plans, as I mentioned, you cannot, if you're not already enrolled in an income-driven repayment plan, you cannot enroll right now because of the SAVE injunction. As of today, there are technically for income-driven repayment plans, SAVE, pay as you earn, IBR, income-based repayment, and the ICR. ICR is the only repayment IDR plan available to those who have Parent Plus loans. Not going to go into the details. All this to say, if you need an affordable repayment plan or a plan based on your income, you will need to wait unless you're already enrolled in one until this reopens, the application for IDR plans reopen. Okay, moving right along because I want to give you concrete advice. If you are on the save forbearance right now, you just want to stay put. You don't want to try to switch plans because you don't want to disturb the process right now, given that no IDR applications are being processed. As a reminder, if you're on the save forbearance, your loans are not growing because you're not accumulating interest. Stay put. Monitor the situation. When you get an opportunity to switch IDR plans, if you're pursuing forgiveness, that's the time to do it. If you're on a standard plan and trying to enroll in an income-driven repayment plan because you cannot afford a standard plan or a traditional plan, I should say, you can call your servicer and request a forbearance. A forbearance is a short-term measure to pause payment. And again, you want to do that to avoid going into delinquency or default. If you're in this situation where you're trying to enroll in an IDR, again, stay tuned. So when IDR applications hopefully open soon, you will be able to enroll in one. Now, this is a big one. If you are due to recertify your IDR plan, you want to check and confirm that you are in fact required to recertify. For people who are enrolled in SAVE, the recertification dates have been pushed back up to a year, so they might not need to recertify up until 2026. You want to check your servicer inbox to see if you got that renewal extension letter. If you're not on SAVE, some people are having to recertify, but yet they cannot do so because IDR applications are halted. You need to speak to your student loan servicer and follow their recommendations. We do recommend that you can recertify by uploading your paperwork to your account and just preserve that proof to make sure that you continue to stay in your current IDR plan. Now, if you want to switch to other plans, again, we're saying hold off for now. Don't even try to do it because you technically cannot, and just monitor the situation for you to do it when the IDR reopens. Public service loan forgiveness. And again, I'm providing a lot of information really quickly, but I think this is of interest. So just in general, public service loan forgiveness is a program that was established in 2007 that allows your remaining loan balance to be forgiven after 10 years if you work for a qualifying employer, primarily nonprofits and government agencies. And you must repay your loans under an income-driven repayment plan. This is a permanent program that, again, would generally require congressional action in order to change it or eliminate it altogether. I know that we're getting a lot of calls of people who are really anxious, who are close to forgiveness, thinking that they might not be able to get it under PSLF. We are, again, hopeful that this this program is going to remain in place is very popular. And so just monitor the situation. Now, one of the key things about PSLF that you can do right now, if you have any credit, is file the PSLF employment certification form using the PSLF help tool, which I provided a little picture there. You want to track your progress to know where you stand. If you already have a tracker, obviously take screenshots, save all that information because you want to make sure that you have proof of where you're at. Now, a thing about PSLF is an all or nothing. In other words, you must reach the 120 qualifying months in order to get your remaining loan balance forgiven. However, your progress does not need to be consecutive. In other words, you can work for a nonprofit, then go to the private sector, and then come back. You don't lose your credit per se. So that's a really good thing. Again, big takeaway if you're thinking of pursuing PSLF or if you're already pursuing the program, make sure that you have your tracker and you have records of that. So, really quick guidance, as I was just saying, keep track of your progress towards PSLF, submit your employment certification form. If you haven't submitted one recently, do so as soon as possible. Now, if you are enrolled in PAYE, IBR, or ICR, you should still be able to accumulate credit towards PSLF and just make sure that you're not due to renew anytime soon, or if you are, take action. If you're on the safe forbearance, again, you're going to just have to wait for more guidance to be able to hopefully switch IDR plans to then accumulate credit and continue with your progress towards PSLF. Now, my heart goes out to the people that are done or should have been done, but for the safe forbearance, because I know it's very stressful and frustrating. You could request the PSLF buyback program that says that if you're done with the 120 qualifying pay but for being in forbearance, for example, you can request to buy back that is pay those months to get you to officially the 120. Now, I do want to caution you, I have yet to see any of my clients get the credit through the buyback program, and that's in part because it had not kicked off the ground, and now with the layoffs, this program may not be fully implemented or in a timely manner, to say the least. But I still highly recommend that people submit the PSLF buyback request because you don't lose anything. And again, keep documentation of that. The other program is called Income Driven Repayment Forgiveness. IDRF forgives your loan balance, as I mentioned, after 20 or 25 years, as long as you pay under an IDR plan. No employment is required, I'm sorry. Under the Biden administration, there was an initiative called the IDR account adjustment that gave a lot of borrowers credit towards IDRF. Now, you can actually go to your studentaid.gov account, and on your dashboard on the right-hand corner, you may actually see a tracker that tells you your progress towards this eventual 20 to 25 year forgiveness. Now, the challenge that we have right now is that the SAVE litigation has basically halted the implementation of actual forgiveness and discharge for IDRF. So stay tuned for that. It was our understanding that the previous administration was still granting forgiveness under IBR because that it's in statute. That's the one plan that it's in statute. But so far, my understanding is that all forgiveness for IDRF has been paused. So just stay tuned. Be sure to download all your records and your progress with your IDRF tracker as well. That's the end. So as I mentioned, if you need one-on-one support, if you want us to meet with you to go over your situation, we're happy to do that. You can contact us. You can book your own remote appointment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Carolina. That was incredibly detailed and very orientating. And the next speaker we would like to introduce is the chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, the Honorable United States Representative, the Member of Congress, Adriano Espaillat.
Thank you, Luis, and thank you, Carolina, for your presentation. As you can all see, this is a very detail-oriented and technical debate that really requires somebody with the expertise of Carolina. to present us with the scenario of the status of things as it pertains to student loans and also obviously education in general, right? First and foremost, I want to ask those of you that have just tuned in that we are streaming live on Facebook and X and YouTube at Rep Espaillat, one word, on these important platforms. And so please tune in. And to ask any questions or if you want an answer, please type in your questions and our moderators will read them to our panelists so that you can get an answer. We want this exercise to be one that is collaborative and interactive. And we all know that since Dodge began its dastardly work in January, thousands of folks have been impacted. And most recent decisions to cut half of the Department of Education workforce. Because of that, many of my constituents have questions about what it means for the educational opportunities of their families and our district. And of course, my district has, there's 154 public schools in my district that rely on $91 million in education-related federal funding. These 154 schools serve 72,860 kids. And so this is so important that we watch and we're able to activate our community and organize our communities to resist these particular cuts. Now, if you take a look at the state numbers, you will see that Title I funding is at a level of $1.5 billion. And Title I funding is important. It serves 1.5 million students. It is reserved for those schools that have a high level of children living under the poverty level. There's $66 million for ELLs, English language learners, like I was when I first came to the nation. 103 for before and after school programs to many parents. $103 million. That's so important because many working parents, of course, pick up their kids at school after they finish their after school program, and their after school program and clubs that are, and then sports that are conducted, sports activities that are conducted in the schools serve an important part of a child's development and learning opportunities. There's also $96 billion in federal student loans supporting 2.5 million New Yorkers pursuing education. So when we heard Carolina speak about the student loans, we know that it impacts a significant number of New Yorkers. You may know that we in the House of Representatives, the Democrats are following each and every one of the executive orders, and we're enacting litigation in the courts on several ones. This is one of them that we're looking to consider potential litigation, the student loan piece. It is so important. We know that student loans make up obviously a big part of a young person's budget, and that they contribute to the hardships that many people face as they try to build a new family. So we're concerned about that, although somewhat decorative in scope and in its content. We're looking at the possibility of legal action against this executive orders. There are other executive orders, obviously, that we have already taken legal action on. We have a group of members that, including myself, that are looking at each of the executive orders and seeing when there is an interest from a lawyer or a law firm to activate litigation on these fronts. So this is important. But most importantly, and I want to address this, is our ability to organize. We will begin the process of convening parents at each of our school districts so that we can have almost a one-on-one conversation regarding this cuts and how we can resist them. It is important that the parent activist base is mobilized, and my office will be very much involved in going to each of the school districts, speaking with the superintendents, with the principals, of course, with the teachers, but most importantly, with you, the parents, to ensure that we actively engage in resisting these potential cuts. Now, many of the education funding streams were flat funding, meaning that there was no increase included in them. But that is, in fact, a cut because each year we have to factor in additional costs. And each year we consider an increase, even if a slight increase in the budgets of each category of the educational budget. And this year, that was flat funded. So that in essence is a cut. And we are projecting that the Trump administration will further cut many of these important, or attempt to cut many of these important programs. So it is important that we know the details of this debate and that we organize to resist at every level possible, including locally. So I thank you for being part of this discussion and this Zoom call. Yo le doy las gracias a ustedes por ser parte de esta discusión sobre no solo los préstamos estudiantiles. Carolina hizo una gran exposición sobre la situación de los préstamos estudiantiles, pero también sobre los recortes de educación en el sistema público presentado por la administración de Trump. Entendemos de que hay litigios ya en contra de muchas de las órdenes ejecutivas. Estamos considerando todavía la posibilidad de un potencial litigio en torno a la orden ejecutiva que tiene que ver con los préstamos estudiantiles. Y con referencia a los fondos de la educación pública, entendemos que no hubo ningún aumento en las categorías de fondo, como es el título 1, que le da fondos extra a las escuelas que tienen un alto nivel de niños por debajo del nivel de la pobreza, o los fondos para los estudiantes que son recién llegados, que están aprendiendo inglés. No hubo ningún aumento y eso en sí es un recorte porque cada año se hace un ajuste que se consideran nuevos requisitos y nuevos gastos y aumentos necesarios para mantenerse al ritmo del costo de la vida. De manera que eso representa un recorte y tenemos que organizarnos para prevenir cualquier tipo de adicional recorte en el futuro. Por tal razón, mi oficina va a visitar a cada uno de los distritos escolares, contactar los superintendentes de esos distritos, los directores de escuela, los maestros y naturalmente ustedes los padres para resistir estos recortes, no solo en Washington, sino también a nivel local. Muchas gracias. Thank you all. And with that, I give it back to Luis.
Thank you so much to Chairman and Member Espaillat for not just leading this, but organizing all of those here together, not just to our panelists, but also to the community at large, and for leading the further efforts to organize us as we continue to combat the Trump administration's actions that are negatively impacting our community. With that being said, I now give the floor to Ms. Vivian Anguiano, former Director of Education at the White House Council. Vivian.
Thank you so much, Luis. And I'd like to thank the Congressman and Chair for putting on this event. It's a pleasure to be with you. And thank you for your leadership in Washington, D.C., representing everyday New Yorkers every day. My name is Vivian Anguiano. I am the former Director of Education at the White House under the Biden-Harris administration. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about what the current layoffs are at the Department of Education. In my former role at the White House, part of my work was to lead the higher education policy development and implementation. So a lot of the policies that Carolina talked about, the SAVE program, public service loan forgiveness expansion, the IDR account adjustment, were policies that I worked on to ensure that the American people could have access to relief for borrowers who we know are struggling every day to make ends meet. Before I talk about what the layoffs mean for everyday people, I do want to just add two things to what Carolina so helpfully provided in detail around student loans. One is that for public service loan forgiveness, just from my own experience in the White House, working with the Department of Education to ensure that services and information was provided to borrowers in an effective way. On PSLF, a lot of what I think is important to also recognize there is that the processing of public service loan forgiveness does rely on the staff at the Department of Education and the speed at which and priority that the administration in power at the White House really puts on that program. As an example, when the Biden-Harris administration took office, only 7,000 borrowers had received public service loan forgiveness prior. And at the time of our exit, over 1 million borrowers received public service loan forgiveness. That's because we prioritized it, we staffed it, and we ensured that it worked. So I just want to highlight that for you as what the power of government can do and why it is so important to really track and understand how government works for you. So that said, I'll go over in detail and at a high level sort of what is the function of the Department of Education, what does it actually do, and what do these layoffs mean for people. So as mentioned earlier, 1,300 staff have been laid off at the Department of Education. 600 have already resigned in addition to that, as they were given that option. So we're now at about 2,000 or so people who are no longer working at the Department of Education, which is half of its size. It's over 4,000 people. So what does that mean? What do these individuals do? The Department of Education has 4 core functions. The first is that it gets money directly to public K-12 schools. So the congressman already spoke to many of these programs, but things like Title I funding, which is funds for students enrolled at schools with high percentages of low-income students. It is also money for students with disabilities under the Individual with Disabilities Education Act. It is also money directly to schools that have English learners. And so that we expect that the administration of programs broadly could potentially be impacted in that space. The second significant role that the Department of Education has is to provide and stand up the higher education student aid system. So we've been talking a lot about student loans, which many people are aware of. 43 million people in this country have student loans. That also means we're talking about things like the Pell Grant, which is free money for students to go to college based on their household income. And many folks may have completed the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid, which is the application that families complete in order to obtain Pell Grants and as well as student loans. So one of the main functions for the Department of Ed, not only being the administration of student loans for individuals who have them, oversight of those programs to make sure that loan servicers are doing what they're contracted to do. We're providing sort of call center support, one-on-one support to the extent that the administration is funded to do so. And then secondly, to ensure that the FAFSA is up and running and is available to everyone so that they can apply for both free money and student loans. Now, the administration has said that these cuts would not impact what they are congressionally mandated to provide, including things like the Pell Grant and student loans. However, we've also seen many disruptions already occur since these layoffs happened. Just one day after the layoffs, the FAFSA was not available. The website essentially crashed because of a issue with the connection to the IRS, which is a back-end part of the system that is used in the functionality of the FAFSA to make sure that it is working. It took the FAFSA is now back up, but that is an example of how disruptions can occur when you don't have the staff available to address issues. Now, the third role that the Department of Education has is to ensure that students' civil rights are protected. Now, the Department of Education actually was created many decades ago at a time when schools were not allowing certain students into their classrooms. It was at a time of high discrimination in this country, and the Department of Education was created because some states were not following what they should have been doing. And so that is a core function of the Department of Education. It is intended to ensure that states and local school districts are serving all students without discriminating against them. And then the last piece, the fourth piece and fourth function of the Department of Education is data and research. And this is a part of the Department of Education that actually very much helps policymakers, parents, families, not only decide where to send their kids to school, either K-12 or in the higher education system, but it allows us to understand what we are doing in classrooms across the country that is working and not working. And one thing that I think is incredibly important here is that our education system continues to have many gaps across various subgroups of students, and you cannot improve what you do not measure. So we know that the layoffs have significantly impacted, if not completely curtailed, the data and research part of the Department of Education. So with that, those are the end of my remarks, but I do want to offer myself to folks here if you all have any questions or if I can be helpful in any way, and would highly encourage folks to engage with Carolina. If the student loan system I know is incredibly complex right now with all of the litigation and services that are held in your community that can help you directly, especially in a personalized way, we have found to be very, very helpful for borrowers and helping them get the information they need in a fast-paced change environment. So thank you so much. And with that, I will pass it back to Luis.
Thank you so much, Vivian. We truly appreciated your information and insights on this matter. And now proceeding to Mr. Christopher Barto, Vice President from Monroe University. Please, Christopher, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Luis. And again, I'd like to add my thank yous and appreciation to Congressman Espaillat for holding this session today on this important topic. And thank you to my co-presenters for the information that they're sharing. I'm happy to add perspective and information from a campus approach working at Monroe University as the Vice President of Compliance and Government Relations, and also a longtime financial aid administrator. Another hat that I wear is as the co-chair of the New York State Financial Aid Administrators Association, or NYSFA for short, co-chair of their Government Relations Committee. I'm also on the Eastern Association for Financial Aid, their federal relations team, and I work with our National Association NASFA. And in those capacities, those of us in the financial aid profession have been reaching out to members of Congress, have been advocating to ensure that we are pushing to support the maintenance of these essential programs and the ongoing support of these programs, the federal aid programs, which I do want to mention that the existing federal aid programs, the federal Pell Grant program, campus-based programs that include federal work study and the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, or SEOG, current funding has not been yet impacted. And our advocacy efforts are centered around ensuring that future funding is not impacted or reduced. Students, current students, future students who are considering enrolling in the upcoming academic year still have access to federal direct loans as they've had before. We are concerned in the higher ed community and in the financial aid profession about the possibility of reductions or cuts to programs such as the Federal Parent Plus Loan Program or Graduate Plus Loan Program, as the Republican Congress has looked at the possibility under the College Cost Reduction Act of potentially eliminating or significantly cutting those plus loan programs that are essential support for funding available to the parents of undergraduate students and available in terms of supplemental loans for graduate study for graduate students. But I do want to emphasize a couple things in terms of the support and the role that local colleges and universities can play for those of you that are current students or for those who are former students and those who are thinking of going to college. Please know that financial aid administrators and other college administrators and staff at most universities and colleges are here to help you with free counsel and advice, connect you with other resources, the incredible resources, for example, that are available to borrowers through Carolina Rodriguez's organization, EdCap, and others like that. But many, many colleges and universities continue to provide assistance to alumni who are going through the repayment process. We work with students on the front end to help you make educated decisions regarding your college and university choices and choices and decisions to limit your debt. I have been in the financial aid profession, associated with the financial aid profession for over 30 years at a variety of institutions in New York. And at all of those institutions and through my association with the financial aid profession, there is really a great commitment to helping students, one, avoid debt altogether through scholarship and grant support, first and foremost, and limit debt for students who may need to take out student loans. So we are here to help you understand options available to you and to do so freely. And that's important for me to stress because in this situation, we're looking at decreased staffing at the U.S. Department of Education and difficulty in getting through to loan servicers oftentimes and getting through to get support from the Federal Student Aid Hotline, where we expect that there's going to be longer delays and inability to reach out and get support for those who are going through the FAFSA process. We've seen in the financial aid profession, and those of us in higher ed have seen an increasing number of frauds and scams that are out there just looking to separate folks from their money and not really providing quality support and assistance. There's no reason why we believe that you should pay for any of this advice, for this counsel, because there are many of us on the college and university side and associated organizations who are here to help walk you through these decisions, understand technical issues like Carolina walked us through so adeptly with the income-driven repayment options and where we are right now. So we are here to help answer questions and to do so, again, freely. I do want to also mention, in terms of resources, an important New York State resource that is available to recent New York college graduates who also attended high school in New York. It's called the New York State Get on Your Feet Loan Program. It offers loan forgiveness to those who are in their first 2 years of repayment, up to 24 payments for those who are currently in income-driven repayment plans. And who are earning less than $50,000 or not working. So we can drop a link in to that program before this form ends. I also do want to mention that some of you may be in a position where, as you're weighing repayment options, to also make sure you're checking to see if you may qualify for deferment options, because there are a variety of deferment options that are available to students in which it's possible under a deferment that your federal student loans can be deferred without the accrual of interest. So that's something that's always important to explore before you look at forbearance options. If you're in a situation where you're not able to currently pay your loans, for example, you might qualify for an economic hardship deferment. There are other deferments that are available as well, and we can provide a link to that list for you also. So really, that's what I wanted to share from an institutional perspective, and I look forward to questions that may come up from those of you that are participating, or conversation with my fellow presenters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bartow, for the wonderful presentation. And next, we have Dr. Marie Guijaume, the principal at the High School for Energy and Technology right here in the Bronx. Dr. Guijaume, please take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to say that these changes have impacted us a lot in the educational system in terms of hiring, as previously noted, hiring qualified candidates, even for teachers or school aides or anything in our schools. So anything we can do to support our schools and educators, that way we can have decent and qualified educators to help our students, that would be most grateful. So whatever we can do to lift these individuals up and support them would be helpful in terms of the loan forgiveness, in terms of providing more resources to our schools and in the educational system, because it's very difficult. And especially this coming year, we're going to have where schools have reduced sizes of students in the classroom, which means that we're going to need even more educators than before. So that's the only part I wanted to point out and bring to this panel to make sure that we have qualified individuals. So thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Marie Guijaume, for that. We do appreciate you participating with us today. And now we open the floor to any additional questions that you may have. In the interim, we'll also read out some of the questions that have been answered in the Q&A. The first question is, hello, and thank you for hosting this panel. For borrowers pursuing PSLF who have recently finished school, there are now no options to enter the income-based plan, which is a requirement for the Public Student Loan Forgiveness Program. Work for a qualifying employer, however, not able to join a qualifying plan, and I'm going to have to start making the payments under the standard plan, which is unaffordable at this point and will not count towards my PSLF, which I've worked very hard to pay towards. What are the options? Answered by Ms. Rodriguez, if they cannot afford the standard plan, you can request a forbearance. Wait until IDR plan enrollments reopen. Hopefully, they will reopen soon so they won't lose their credit. And as always, you can feel free to reach out to EDCAP, that is EDCAPNY.org, for more questions, guidance, and assistance. Thank you for answering, Carolina. Another question we had was, will we discuss the current student loan and future students and optional for federal student loans, students that depend on these loans to continue their education? And yes, this was addressed by Mr. Christopher Barto. And also for those watching, we will be posting this shortly soon on our YouTube page. It will be available to all of those, and we'll be having a email notifying those that are members of the newsletter that it has been posted and is available for public use. Another questions that we have is they would like to ask about the existing loans that are in forbearance, what this means, and if they should be worried. Answered by Ms. Rodriguez, we wouldn't worry too much. If they are in the safe forbearance, your loans should not be accumulating interest. And once again, SAVE is an acronym for another type of program that was introduced during the Biden administration to make payments to your student loans. If you have a general forbearance, you may consider enrolling in an income-driven repayment plan to accumulate credit towards forgiveness once the IDR plans reopen. If you need a one-on-one help to develop a short and long-term strategy, once again, please do not hesitate to reach out to edcapny.org, and all of their services are free. Another question received is, should I start paying my loan? I recently consolidated and I noticed that I haven't been accumulating interest after that. Did they remove me from the SAVE program and the IDR once I consolidated in November of 2024? Answered by Ms. Rodriguez, please check your servicer account to ensure you do not have a bill due or an overdue payment. If you cannot afford a standard plan, you may request a forbearance again until the IDR plans reopen. Once they reopen, you want to enroll in an IDR. It is unlikely that SAVE will survive, unfortunately, so you may need to explore the other options like the IBR. Once again, if you need further assistance or guidance in consolidating or applying, please reach out to edcapny.org. Okay. And these are additional messages that we've received. For those that missed part of the recording, it will be shared once again. So please make sure to visit the website, and we'll be signing people up for the newsletter. And that way you'll be informed not just of this event and when it is posted on our YouTube page so it's accessible to all, but as well to be informed of the other events that we will continue, as this is one of our series of events to inform our community. And at this time, it seems like those are all of the questions in the Q&A. With that being said, we thank you all for joining us today. We will also be posting our office's information so you can reach out to us, and we'll leave that available so that all of our participants can receive the information that is available in the chat. We want to thank you all once again for joining us today and for being a part of our movement to organize, mobilize, and inform as we assist our community and constituency in the face of the difficulties posed by the Trump administration's recent actions. Thank you once again. Thank you to all that have joined, and have a wonderful afternoon.